Luke chapter 12, verse 22. Trying to figure out what to preach this week, and as I came across some of these verses and these topics, I thought this would make a good follow-up to our study that we just finished up on Dad's Sense, as we called it, and we did this financial study, and dads helping dads teach their kids. And as I was going through this, I got to think about worry and anxiety, and what do we worry about and have the most anxiety about usually? Financial stuff, right? You know, how we're going to pay the bills. Oh no, not at all. Okay, so let's go through this a little bit. Luke chapter 12, verse 20 says, "Then he said to his disciples, 'Therefore I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, nor about the body, what you will put on. Life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing. Consider the ravens, for they neither sow nor reap, which have neither storehouse nor barn, and God feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? And which of you by worrying can add 1 cubit to his stature? And if you then are not able to do the least, why are you anxious for the rest? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, and yet I say to you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothes the grass which today is in the field and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O you of little faith? And do not seek what you should eat or what you should drink, nor have an anxious mind. For all these things the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knows that you need these things. But seek the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added to you. Do not fear, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell what you have and give alms. Provide yourselves money bags which do not grow old, a treasure in heaven that does not fail, where no thief approaches nor moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." I thought this might be a good follow-up message of our topic of money that we finished last week, because I just felt like a message on worry and anxiety seemed appropriate. Because if we would be honest with ourselves, one of the things that brings much worry, much stress, much anxiety, many anxious moments into our life are financial issues. I think you would agree with me on that, wouldn't you? I mean, how are we going to buy the kids new shoes? How are we going to get them clothes for school? How are we going to pay the rent this month? How are we going to pay the doctor's bills? Those things seem to pile up on us. And sometimes it's the lack of finances, I suppose, but sometimes it's also what are we going to do with the finances that we have? And just like the topic of money, the Bible has a lot to say about worry and stress and anxiety. And these three words, I suppose, if we were to lump them together, which I'm kind of doing today anyway, I think we would see pretty quick it is one of the hot topics of our world. You start talking about anxiety, you start talking about depression, you start talking about worry and fear and stress. Those are hot topics. Yesterday in our class that we were taking, Brenda and I were taking a counseling youth class yesterday. It started actually Friday night, went from 6 to 10, and then yesterday from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. I'm just telling you, at about 2:30, I was struggling to stay awake, first of all, and not because the teacher was boring, but just because that's a long day and long sitting. But on Friday night, we got into this discussion, and you can do with this what you want. I'm not going to sit here and beat on you and try to prove to you my point or anything like this. But the question came up, is anxiety and and really, I guess that was the word they were looking for, is anxiety a sin? That was the question of topic that came up. And then it went from there to about 5 or 6 other things, and before we knew it, we were way off track, and the teacher had to scramble yesterday to get through his notes and everything. But is anxiety a sin? Is worry a sin? Is worry a sin? Is being anxious a sin? And, the Scripture has a lot to say about it. And so we're going to look at some verses this morning, too. In the text that we just read, Jesus says specifically in verse 22, do not worry. Do not worry. Do we worry anyway? Of course we do. There's the first answer if you hadn't already figured out the answer. Do we worry? Of course we worry. We worry about all kinds of things. And while you may not worry about what you will eat or what you'll put on, what we do worry about is how we're going to get the money to get the things to eat and the things to put on. The truth is we worry about a lot of things, even more than money. When we're young, we worry about if we'll have friends at school. Then we worry if we'll get a job someday. And then we worry if we're going to make enough money to pay our bills. Then we worry about who we're going to marry. And then we worry if that marriage will last. And then we worry about our health. And we worry whether or not we'll have insurance this time next year. We worry if our kids will like us when they get older. We wonder if our kids will have anything to do with us when they get older. We worry if they will take care of us when we get older. We worry about what nursing home they're going to put us into, right? I mean, it's just, there's always something, if you look hard enough, that you can worry about. And I don't think the question this morning is so much, do we worry? I think we know the answer to that. The question is, why do we worry? Why do we worry? And we like to, at this point, why do we fret and worry and do whatever it is we worry about? Why do we get so preoccupied or driven or have panic attacks or brood or stress or get depressed or get angry or whatever form your anxiety takes? Why do we worry? And most of us would say, well, I worry because of this problem over here. Or I worry because of this situation over here. Or I worry because of this over here. And I would like to submit to you this morning that the problem is the one worrying about the problem. You see, the problem is what's in us. It's not what's out there. The problem is what's in here or what's lacking in here. We worry because of what's inside of us. And what's inside of us? You and me, right? We have to live with ourselves. And it's ourselves, our personality, our beings, that do the worrying. It's not the problem's fault. The problems don't worry. Okay? The bill sitting on your desk to pay the doctor doesn't sit there and go, oh, I sure hope I get paid. I wonder how I'm going to get paid. Oh, my goodness gracious, I sure hope they pay me because I can't just sit here forever. That bill will sit there for the rest of your life and my life and everybody else's life if it's not even worried. Okay? So who's doing the worrying? We are. We're doing the worrying. In fact, Jesus, in this passage of Scripture alone, will use the words you, your, and yourselves about 18 times. He's going to say, you're worrying. You're anxious. You're fretting. You're stressing out. You're taking the depression medicine. You're the one all stressed out here, okay? And all those kinds of things. So real quick, I want to give you 7 reasons that Christ gives us. Reasons why you don't need to worry, okay? Real simple. I'm going to fly through these pretty quick. I know you're looking at this going, this is a really long outline, okay? And I don't want to, we're going to go through it quick, all right? Number 1 is this. Your life is so much more than food and clothing. In verses 22 and 23, he said, therefore I say to you, do not worry. Okay, now that looks like to me like a pretty straightforward command, okay? Don't be worrying. You don't need to worry about your life, what you will eat, or what you will put on. Life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing, okay? Some of you, especially if you're a teenage girl, okay, get up in the mornings, which really narrows it down here this morning. You get up in the morning and you go through your closet and go, oh, I can't wear that, 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 can't wear that. Oh, maybe I could wear this. Well, I'll go with this. Oh, no, won't go with this. So I can't wear this. I can't wear this. I can't wear this. And then you finally find 2 things that match, and you realize, those will look good. Oh, now it's socks time. Got to find socks that match. And oh, got to have shoes that match. Got to find shoes. And some of you will spend hours going through, what do I wear today? And some of you, this is my funny thing, after you go, can't wear that, 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 then you go, I don't have a single thing to wear. That'd crack you up, you know. And I think every teenage girl, just for the sake of getting dressed faster in the morning so you don't have to get up so early, will just let your dad go pick out your outfit for that day. Wouldn't that speed things up? Okay? And he could just lay it out the night before, and you just have to pick it up. Okay, probably not going to work. Okay, but I thought it was a good idea. Okay? Jesus' point is that life is so much more than just looking good. Okay? And I can promise you, you might look good at 23, but when you get to be 93, you ain't going to look so good. Okay? The wrinkles are going to come. The eyesight is going to go. You will be shorter than what you were. I don't understand it. I just know that it works that way. Okay? I'll never forget when I went home one year to see my dad, and I went, Dad, you shrunk. You used to be 5'11". Now he was barely over 5'9", and I'm going, what happened? And my dad wasn't all stooped over. He shrunk. By the way, did you ever notice something about men as they get older? Brenda will appreciate this. Everything shrinks on a man except his ears. Have you ever noticed that? The older we get, I don't think our ears grow, but I think our faces shrink and we get shorter, and these ears just like get longer. You know, I think I'm just going to go to the Halloween store and buy them ears that just stick out big. So everybody, notice me now, because when I don't want people looking at me when I'm 93 going, look at the size of those ears, honey, look at that guy. Okay? Yeah, I don't want them doing that when I'm in the nursing facility. Okay, I don't know why that happens. My point is this: if you're betting on your looks, it's a losing bet, because they're going to go. If you're living for sports, any of you guys in here, any men here living for sports, it's not going to last forever. The knee injury will come. The reflexes will slow down. The eyes will go bad. And it is foolish for us to live for these things. We live in a world where food consumes us. You're either on a special diet, or you're on no diet, or you're on a seafood diet, or whatever diet you're on. And every time you see food, you just eat it. And whatever diet you're on, we're consumed by it. We count calories, and we count fiber, and we count whatever else there is. Proteins and we're counting all this stuff. And you see people in the grocery store, they're picking it up, and they're looking at it, and I can't eat that. That's got too much fiber. That's got too much gluten. This has got too much. We're consumed with this kind of stuff. In fact, it goes everywhere. And Jesus is saying, listen, the world is so much more than what you eat. I do believe the world would be a worse place off if there were no Freddy's. But that's just my way of thinking, okay? But we're just consumed with all this stuff, aren't we? In our world today, there are places all over the world to eat. Some of you on your way home today will pass probably 30 places to eat. Some of you more than that. In our drive from here to there, we should just count them today, babe. How many places could we stop and eat? There's 3 or 4 off every exit. And it's all around us. And we'll talk about it. We'll discuss it. We'll have conversation. Do you want to eat there? No, we had Mexican on Tuesday. Yeah, I remember Tuesday was Mexican. How about Chinese? No, not Chinese. Chinese upsets my stomach. Besides, we had that last Friday. And we should do this. And we'll have all these discussions. Or some of you ladies started yesterday or the day before figuring out what you're going to have for dinner on Sunday. We think about it all the time. And life is so much more than food or clothing. Number 2 is this. God can take care of it. Another reason why you shouldn't worry is because God can take care of it. I don't care what it is. Whatever you're worried about, whatever you're stressed about, whatever you're having all this anxiety about, God can take care of it. You are more valuable than the old crows, the ravens, the sparrows of the world. Anybody here have fruit trees in your yard? You have fruit trees in your yard? Anybody? If you've ever had a fruit tree, you know that the birds love fruit trees. Okay? And crows and ravens, in fact, are known to, especially like plum trees. And so if you ever get a plum tree, you better figure out a way to keep the crows away from them, or you won't get any plums. Okay? And they go fast. When they find them, they get the word out. Caw, caw, caw. They get the word out, and I'll carry them all the rest of them. And they can wipe out a plum tree in no time. And after years, they'll go find another one. And they always seem to find one, don't they? If they don't find that, they'll find the roadkill in the middle of the road. They'll find whatever's there, and they'll eat anything because they're scavengers. They'll eat anything. And God is just telling us here, listen, you are more valuable than those old crows. You're not going to starve to death. You may look in your cabins and go, we just don't have a thing to eat. God says, listen, you're not going to starve to death. You will get food. You will have a roof over your head. He will take care of you. God can take care of the problem, whatever it is. Verse 25 and 26. Number 3, worry cannot add a single thing to your life. He says in verse 25, which of you by worrying can add 1 cubit of his stature? If you then are not able to do the least, why are you anxious for the rest? And his whole point there is a cubit in Bible times was about 18 inches. It was the measurement of a king from his forearm to the tip of his finger. And that's pretty common in most people. That's about 18 inches in adults. And he's just saying, you can worry and fret over it, but no matter how much you worry about it, you're not going to be able to get taller. Okay? Now, Don's not worried about this, okay? And I'm not too worried about it either. But some of you are going, I just wish I was a little bit taller. And especially when I was growing in high school, and I always wanted to be 6'6". I thought that was the perfect height. Okay, 6'6". I thought I could do that. I could play NBA basketball, and I'll have the rest of my life ahead of me. Well, at 6'2", God said, "No, you're done." At 14 years old, I didn't grow anymore. But I wanted to. In fact, I would get on the edge of my bed sometimes, and I'd grab the headboard, and I'd try to stretch. And I thought, maybe if I can just stretch, get another inch, that can be 6'3". Never happened. And basically, really, what God is saying here is, it's more than just height. Really, everything you're trying to accomplish in life, all the worry and the fret and the anxiety about trying to accomplish it is not going to be done. God's going to give you the blessing. You'll either accomplish it or you won't. It's left in His hands. You can't add another minute to your day, no matter how hard you try. Well, I guess we did yesterday. We added an hour to our day, didn't we? Of course, we'll lose it in 6 months. But you can't add an extra minute. You can't add an extra hour. You can't add an extra day to your life. When it's your time to go, it will be your time to go. Sometimes people say, Brother Jeff, how come you don't eat lots of salads and run exercise and jog and all that kind of stuff? And, because I know that when it's my time to go, it's my time to go. I could eat a lot of salads and go jogging, I'll probably get hit by a car. And I will get to heaven, I'll be so mad that I ate salads for those 6 months and jogged and got up 2 hours early to do all stuff, just so I could hit by a car. I'm going to get to heaven. God's going to say, I could have told you this was your day. You were going to be here. You didn't have to. You could have been eating T-bone steak. No, you had to be, eat salads. And, so when it's your time to go, it's your time to go. I'll never forget a story when I was a kid in high school. I was reading about a story. I was reading the sports page, and there was a story about a guy in the paper who's a professional hockey player. And he and his wife were sleeping in bed one night, and his wife was sleeping closest to the window, and he was on the other side of her, and lightning came through the window, struck their bed, jumped over her, struck him, and he died. And she jumped out of bed because the bed was on fire, and her husband was on fire, and she watched him burn up. And tragic story, but the first thing I thought as a kid, it was this guy's time to go. Okay, I'm just saying. It obviously wasn't hers, it was his. Okay? I'm saying, that's like God going, right there, buddy. Boom, and I'm going, it was his time to go. No matter how much worried, no matter how much money he made, no matter how good of a hockey player he was, that was his time to go. And all the worry and fret and fear in the world is not going to add more to that. By the way, worry can take some years off, okay? But it can't add to it. In fact, I had a doctor tell my mother one time, he said, 90% of your problem is worry and anxiety, and you're taking years off your life. It's not good for your heart. Okay. Number 4. Another reason we shouldn't worry is because what God gives is more glorious than anything this world has to offer. In verse 27 and 28, he says, Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil or spin, and yet I say to you that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothes the grass which today is in the field and tomorrow is thrown to the oven, how much more will He clothe you, O you little faith? Boy, what an appropriate couple verses for this time of year. After the rains on last week, when it stopped raining about Thursday, Brenda called me just before I could call her, and she said, Look outside. My goodness gracious, has God painted a beautiful picture. The fall colors this year, right after that rain, just became vibrant. The yellows really took off. I don't know what happened. But, and we sit back and we say, wow, how beautiful. And you know what? In 2 weeks, it's all going to be gone. And, if God can do all that, don't you think that He can clothe you and dress you and take care of you? He said, even Solomon in all of his glory was not arrayed like one. God said, if I can do that with a tree. Have you seen the fire bushes? I love the fire bushes. I don't know what a fire bush is when it's not a fire bush, but I want to get some because they're the most beautiful things in the fall. And, if God can do that, don't you think He can take care of you? Don't you think you're a little more important than a bush that's going to die out anyway over the winter? That's all he's saying here. You don't need to worry about that. Number 5 is your life is more than money. Verse 29 and 30, the food and rain and food and these things were always a signal of food. Food and drink. It said, do not seek what you shall eat or what you shall drink, nor have an anxious mind. Again, that to me sounds like almost like a command. Nor have an anxious mind. For all these things the nations of the world seek after. Matthew chapter 6 says that these things the Gentiles seek. And your Father knows that you need these things. He says, God knows that you need all that stuff. Why are you worrying about it? Again, fretting, worrying, stressing out. Food and drink always represent sustenance or wealth. And he's just saying it's so much more than that. You're so worried about what you're trying to get and gain and stock up on. Quit fretting about that, stressing out about what you're eating, what you're going to be drinking. Number 6, another reason we shouldn't worry is that God promises you Himself. Look at verse 31. If you want to get rid of some anxiety, seek the kingdom of God. All these things shall be added to you. Do not fear, little flock. I love that. There's this town in Arkansas called Little Flock. Sheila, do you know where Little Flock is? Just north of Rogers. Don't be too upset. There's not a whole lot to Little Flock, okay? The only reason I know there is because we went to help a guy build a church one time, and it happened to be in Little Flock, Arkansas. And it's about 2 streets, I think. And it's just a nothing little place, but I love that name. It's like God saying, children, children, kids, kids. It's okay. I've got it under control. Come here, you sheep. You knucklehead sheep. I hesitate to use the word dumb, but sheep are dumb. You all come here. Quit worrying. Quit stressing. The shepherd will take care of you now. And that's what he's saying. I'm with you. God promises you himself. I meant to have Jason do a special slide here, and I forgot to do it. But I want you to write this top of your outline. Just write these words. Write, my Father, okay, my Father, it's a short little sentence, is God. Just write those 4 little words. My Father is God. I want you to say that with me. My Father is God. Say it again. My Father is God. This time emphasize the word Father. My Father is God. This time emphasize the word God, okay? My Father is God. Now, throw some of your problems into that sentence. And get a real grip about who your dad is, okay? Your Father is God. As my mother would say, what in tarnation are you worrying about? Your Father is God. He's pretty much got things under control. He's pretty much got a grip on it all, right? He can figure out how to pay that electric bill you've got, or that water bill, or that rent payment. Whatever you've got going on. Dottie, I appreciate your testimony this morning. Dottie thought she was getting a paycheck Thursday or so and didn't come. Thought she was going to get it Friday, it didn't come. Finding out now she's not going to get it till the 15th. And I appreciate her testimony. She came in, boy, it's today's message of my life. Saw the title of the message, today's message, and she said, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to stress about it. Hey, do you think God can meet her needs and get her through the next couple of weeks? I think does he have the funds? Does he have a little more money than most of us have in our checking accounts? I think he can pull it off. I saw him change some trees last week. Blew my mind. I think he can pull it off. I'm just saying. Your Father is God. You can put your head on your pillow tonight and going, my Father's God. I've got absolutely nothing to worry about. When our youngest son was about 18 months old, we went to a swimming pool. And Brad, our youngest, was always one who was kind of the daredevil. And he kind of went down to the deep end, and he backed up a few steps, and he ran off, and he jumped into the deep end. And you know what? Brenda didn't even panic. In fact, she sat there and watched him do it. And she just went, huh. And you know why she didn't panic? Because standing in the deep end was me going, come to Daddy, okay? And he would get on the edge of that pool and, yeah. Why was he doing that? Because he was saying, my daddy's in the deep end. My daddy's in the deep end. My daddy can catch me. He can keep me from drowning. He wasn't smart enough to know all these things. He just knew it was safe to jump into that water. Now, a couple times, being ornery, I'd catch him and go, whoop, dunk him underwater just so he'd get used to being underwater. And he'd go, he didn't like that. But why was he doing it? Why would he jump into a 5-foot, 6-foot pool of water without a single thought? Because his daddy was in the deep end. I don't know how deep the water's getting around you this morning, but can I just remind you that your daddy's there? He's a whole lot bigger than your deep end. And he can catch you, and he can hold you above water. He can take care of you. And you don't have to worry and fret and stress and take anxiety medicine and everything else that you need to do to try to get through the day. You'll be okay. Number 7 is this. The blessing is in giving your life away. Look at verse 33. He tells these people, and I don't think it's any coincidence all this is lumped together. He says, sell what you have, give alms. Provide yourselves money bags which do not grow old, a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches nor moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. When I say the blessing is in giving your life away, it doesn't mean that you have to go home today, sell your house, sell your car, sell everything you got, go be a hermit in the mountains or sit on the streets and beg for food. That's not what he's talking about here, okay? It just means that you live to give, you don't live to get. Okay, that's all he's saying here. You live to give, you don't live to get. And when he talks about laying up treasures in heaven here, and he said, get yourself some money bags that don't rot out. Because you see, in heaven, the money bags don't rot out. Back in that day and age, they would use leather money bags, and they'd put their money in them, okay? But sometimes they would get old through time, and they'd get a small hole in their leather bag, and they wouldn't realize it. And you know what happens is they'd ride around on their horses or whatever, they're walking down the streets. The money might fall out. It'd be a tragic day to get home after getting your day's pay and your gold, your coins, whatever, and you get home and your money bag had a hole in it and it's gone. You ever lose money? That's a tragedy, isn't it? Okay, we all freak out. I had $20, and you're ripping your wallet apart, and you're digging through your purse and everything else, and you're dumping it upside down. Now, what happened to the money that I had? Just got it out of the bank. Okay, you're freaking out, and because you've lost some money. And in that day and age, it wasn't like you go down to your boss and say, "Oh, could you write me a new check? I lost the last one I had." You ever lost your paycheck? I've done that. Am I the only dumb one in this room? Okay, I guess so. Okay, now we have automatic deposit, thankfully, because I'd get home and lose the paycheck. I heard the funniest story one time. How many of you know who Gary McCord is? Oh, you people, you need to get educated. Okay, Gary McCord's a professional golfer, and he was on listen to an interview and yeah, I know, a golfer. You guys, golf is not even a real sport. But they were doing an interview with him one time, and the very first golf tournament he ever won, which was back in the 70s, he got $66,000 for winning it, and he lost the paycheck. He lost the check. And the reason it happened is because back in those days, remember in TV shows they'd give him this big giant, cardboard check, Well, that was the one that they would give him. And in reality, they had to take that thing down to banks. Then somebody one day said, "That's really stupid. Let's cut small ones and let them just frame that one," or something like that. Well, he didn't know that was the really official check. And so he just took it home. So, this is a really dumb poster. Thought he'd get a small one, and so he tore it all up and got rid of it, and he lost it. And then he had to go back and call the golf people and go, "I lost your check. Is there any way that you could get me another one?" But can you imagine going to your boss? "I lost my paycheck for the week. Can you cut me another one?" And it's pretty embarrassing. I've lost checks that people gave me before. Okay, losing money can be tragic, and that's why God is saying, don't worry about so much the money here. Try laying up treasure in heaven. Ever had anybody here break into your house, steal something? I say that's one of the most violating things that can happen. And in Bible times, it's very common. Okay, they didn't have ADT, and they didn't have Comcast, and all the people censoring your house with the cameras and all that kind of stuff. Somebody broke into your house, they robbed you. Chances are you weren't getting your stuff back. Okay, and there was no way to catch the criminal. And he's saying, so quit investing in things here, where thieves break through and steal, where moths come in and eat your clothes, and where things rot and rust. He said, build treasures in heaven. That's what's important. I want to read 2 verses this morning. I want you to turn to Proverbs 25:28. I'm going to do something I don't hardly ever do in this church, and you know that I don't do this. We use the New. I preach out of the New King James, and most of us here use the New King James. Kind of do that for consistency's sake. If I read out of a different version, usually I tell you. This verse this morning, I'd like to read it, and if you have a different version, after I read my version, I'd like for you to read your version. Okay? Now, we don't hardly ever do this, but I want you to hear this verse, okay, in as many clear ways as possible, okay? In Proverbs 25:28, the writer of Proverbs says, "Whoever has no rule over his own spirit," let that sink in for a second. If you don't have rule over your own spirit, in other words, if you walk around all the time going, I can't handle life, okay? That's Odell's interpretation, but that's basically what it means. Okay? If you can't control your own spirit, you're like a city that has broken down without walls. And any city in Bible times that was broken, that the walls were broken down, it was susceptible to being attacked, and the people had a lot of reason to fear. So I'll read that again. Whoever has no rule over his own spirit is like a city broken down without walls. Now, does anybody have something that says anything a little bit different? Go ahead, Diana, thank you. I was going to say Marissa, and I said, it's not right, it's not right, it's not right, it's not right. What have you got, Diana?
Like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control.
Who lacks self-control. Ooh, I like that. We don't like hearing that. But that when you're like that city with you're just out of control. You ever meet people who live life out of control? Their whole life is one drama scene after the next, right? Oh, I can't handle it. Okay? You don't want to be like that. You don't want to be living in fear all the time. Anybody else got anything else? Anybody else got a different version? Don't be shy. We won't pick on you for your version, okay? Is that it? Usually I've got 38 when I need 2. Okay. All right. Well, gosh, I should have brought a few. Okay. The idea of it here, the person who has no control, who does not rule over his own spirit. In other words, that person who's fearful, that person who's scared, that person who's anxious, okay, is like that city that has to live in fear all the time. I want you to turn over to another passage with me, Philippians chapter 4, and then we're going to run through the rest of our outline. And again, it won't take long. Philippians chapter 4, this passage of Scripture a lot more familiar than some of the other than that last verse, of course. Philippians chapter 4 and verse 4. Paul says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all men. The Lord is at hand." And here's the verse that kind of sparked off our discussion in class. "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God," if you'll do that, the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds through Christ Jesus. I said in the introduction of your outline there, it's not so much what we do with our worries, it's what we don't do. And what we don't do is we don't take them to God. We just worry and fret and stress instead of taking them to God and giving them to Him. Real quick here, I want to give you 6 practical things to do when you worry and obsess. When you worry and obsess over stuff, here's 6 things, just real quick, practical things here that you can do. Number 1 is this. Name the pressures. Name them. In other words, be honest about them. Go to God in prayer and say, "God, here's what I'm worrying about." Some of you, if I were to ask you this morning, I'd say, "Are you worrying about that?" You go, "Oh, no, I'm not worrying about that." Then you call me in 2 days and say, "Preacher, I'm really worried about this." Okay? We don't want to people think we're worriers, but we're worriers. Okay? And let's be honest, we've all worried at certain times about stuff. Okay? As cool and calm and collected as I seem to be sometimes, I worry. Okay? I'm worried right now, how in the world am I going to get all my homework done before tomorrow night when I have to email it to the teacher? Okay? And I told Brenda, I said, "I don't know how I'm going to get this done. I don't know how I'm going to get this done. I don't know how I'm going to get this done." Brenda said, "You're talking so much about getting it done, you're not going to do it. Go get it done and get it done." Okay? So you're just talking too much about getting it done. And it's consumed me. Okay? I'm worried and I'm fretting, I'm stressing all about it. How am I going to get it done? How am I going to get it done? Okay? Just a lot going on. Okay? And so we all worry. But name them. Be honest in prayer. Name the reasons that you're worrying. And then the ways that you can solve them, or most likely understand that you can't do anything to solve them. Number 2 is this. Identify how you express anxiety. When you are stressed, when anxiety and pressures come into your life, how do you respond? Do you panic? Clutch your heart? "Oh, I'm having the big one, Ethel." Is that what we do? Okay. Is that what you do? Okay. Do you have the panic attack? Okay. Do you sit and you wring your hands and you worry, or do you pace the floor back and forth? "Oh my goodness gracious, how are we going to get through this thing? I just don't know how in the world we're going to make it." And is that what you're doing? When everything comes, you get irritated, get angry at others, maybe even begin to curse and say things that you shouldn't say. Maybe it's expressed in your body, migraine headaches. Right? A lot of people, when they get stressed out and going through anxiety and stuff, they get the migraine headaches or stiff joints. You get to where you feel like you can't function. Okay? Maybe you turn to those cheap quick fixes, like eating. Okay? Or taking a puff or taking a drink. Maybe you turn to some fantasy land with pornography or romance novel. Maybe you sleep. Some people just say, "Well, I'm just going to go to bed." Never solves anything. You wake up and the problem's still there, but you go to bed. Okay? You feel good for 35, 40 minutes anyway. Maybe you shop. It's what we humorously call retail therapy. Right? If I'll just go spend money, look how much better I'll feel. Okay? Until the bill comes and you worry about how you can pay the bill. Right? So it's a whole new stress and anxiety. In our grief counseling, the classes that I teach, we call these STIRBs. Short-term energy relief behaviors. STIRBs. And we've all got them. All things that we do to try to relieve the stress and anxiety as fast as we can. You know, as long as I've been teaching these grief recovery classes now, and I've done probably 7 or 8 of them, not one time has somebody said to me, oh, I know what I do. I pray. Not a single person has ever said that. Oh, when I'm having troubles, the first thing I do is I pray. No one's ever said that. It's funny, too. I'll have 2 ladies sitting side by side sometimes. And I say ladies. I say that generically because most of the people in my classes are ladies. I have had men, but majority of the time, I'd say 90% of the time it's ladies. But I'll have 2 ladies sitting beside, and one will say, oh, yeah, when I was really having stress and grief and loss, I ate. And the other one will sit here and say, oh, really? I didn't eat at all. This one will say, I gained 50 pounds. This one will say, well, I lost 50 pounds. I mean, it's so funny. You know, we all react differently. We all do things differently. When the stress, the anxiety, the worry, the stress, all those kinds of things pile upon us, we all react differently. Okay? But none of them work. That's the point. They don't work. Oh, yeah, maybe for a few minutes, take a nap, so maybe for an hour you weren't stressing out, okay? But that's not what solves the problem. Number 3 is this. I forgot to throw in, some people just zone out and watch TV or get on the computer, okay? Number 3 is this. Ask this question, why am I anxious? Why am I anxious? And is it possible that I have forgotten who God is? What's the top of your paper say? I think I had you write a special sentence down there, if I recall. My Father is God. Have we forgotten that? Is possibly one of the reasons we worry so much we have forgotten who God is? God is my Father. And listen, if I have forgotten that, then what it is that I'm craving, expecting, demanding, and lusting after, that thing will stop. I'm saying that totally wrong. If I've forgotten who God is, then I am expecting this thing that I'm craving, this thing I'm lusting for, this thing I'm desiring, this problem to go away. I'm convinced that if I can get that fixed, if I can get this problem to go away, then that will stop my anxiety. And I'm convinced that if this person over here would react the way that I want them to react, then my fear and anxiety will go away. And the truth is, it never will. Because if it's not that problem, it's going to be another one. If it's not that one, it's going to be this one over here. And if it's not this job, it's going to be this job over here. Life is not free from anxiety and worry and stress and fears. Okay? They're going to be out there. It's what we do with them. I don't know what you're fearing losing or never getting. Maybe it's respect. Maybe it's love. Maybe it's companionship. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's health. But listen, what is more important than a relationship with God and a close walk with Him? Nothing. Nothing. Number 4 is this. Which of the 7 promises that we just gave a while ago speak to you the most? When you start worrying and stressing and having anxiety, I want you to go back and I want you to look at the top part of the outline. And you might read through it and say, well, worry can't add a single thing to my life. I understand that. But what God gives is more glorious than what the world has to offer. Now, that one's relating to me now. And it may be a different one depending on the situation. But God said, these are reasons you shouldn't be worrying and stressing and out. And this is the reason you shouldn't have anxiety. And one of these promises, or maybe it's just the number 6, oh yeah, God, I forgot. You've given me you. I have forgotten that you are my Father. So which of these 7 promises picture? Number 5 is this. Go to your Father. As the Bible says, casting all your care upon Him. Why do we do that? Because He cares for you, right? Philippians 4:4-7. In everything by prayer, supplication, thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. You take those things to Him. Some of you will call me sometimes and say, Brother Jeff, my life's just a mess. And you go through the whole thing, all these problems, and then I'll say, well, have you stopped and prayed about it? Well, no, but that's our favorite line after well, no, but. Well, no, but. Those lines all go together, right? Well, no. How much time have you spent in the Bible lately? Well, I looked at it a week and a half ago. Well, that's where that's where God speaks to us and everything. So God's not speaking to you and you're not speaking to God. No wonder you got problems. No wonder you're worried, stressed out, fretting, anxiety, okay? Needing to take something, needing to do something, needing to spend or whatever. No wonder. You haven't let God talk to you and you're not talking to Him. Yeah. If I called you and I said, Don, I have some real problems in my marriage. Brent and I haven't spoken in 6 months. Don, I think you have enough wisdom. What would you probably say to me? I'm trusting you on this one, Don. Help me out here. Yeah. It would probably be helpful if I what? If I go talk to her. Yeah. And I don't know what it is. We live in the same house and I walk around her all the time. She never speaks to me. Then Don might say something like, Well, have you talked to her? Well, no. Have you said hi to her in the mornings? Well, no. So Don's going, so you don't talk to her, and she doesn't talk to you. There might be a relationship problem there. In fact, Don might even come back and say, you probably have good reason to fear. Okay? But you know what? If you talk to her and she talks to you, that might resolve the problem. You might not have near as much fear and stress in your life. And so then I call up Don 2 weeks later and said, Don, you're not going to believe this. I talked to Brenda and she talked to me, and wow. I didn't know I'd made her mad by stepping on her toe, and she wouldn't talk to me. And I asked for forgiveness, and she said, sure, I forgive you. And then now everything's... We just talked to one another. And now the whole relationship... And I don't have any worry and fret and anxiety anymore. This is not deep. I'm not a deep preacher. You guys know that, okay? This is not deep stuff. But, we go through this worry and fret and stress, and in Philippians 4, it tells us, be anxious for nothing in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made to God. And then sometimes I'll say, well, did you pray? Have you prayed about this? Well, no. But when was the last time you got in God's Word? Let Him speak to you. Well, I don't know. But, See what I'm saying? All the source of our strength, we never go to the source of our strength, who is our Father, who cares for us incredibly and deeply. And number 6 is this. One simple word. Give. 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 Now, some of you were really enjoying the message till we got to right here. Okay? What do you mean give, preacher? How can I give if my financial problems are problems anyway and I can't give? Give. Do something or say something constructive to somebody else. Even if you just got to go give an encouraging word. Or go pray with somebody. Let me challenge you this, since I work in a hospice anyway. Go to the nursing facility and visit some people and just love on them a little bit. Sing a song to them. One thing I've always done, and I like doing this, and it's always fun to do, somebody will say, preacher, I'm just down and depressed, and I don't know what to do. It's raining today, and my life is blue. What should I do? I said, go home and bake some cookies and take them to somebody. And deliver them to somebody who's shut in and can't do it. And if they ever do it, many people don't do it. Well, that's the stupidest thing I've heard of. What kind of counsel is that? But people who'll do it, and they'll take the cookies, and they'll do something for somebody else, will almost always call me and say, I had such a good time. That was so wonderful. I felt so good about that. We talked for 2 hours, and I didn't really know that person very well, but now I know them a whole lot better. And well, they're just a sweet person. We've got this neat little relationship going on, and I just love doing that. And you know why? Because for a couple hours, you got your eyes off self and got your eyes on somebody else, and you just gave and invested in somebody else's life. And it changes your world. As long as it's all about you, you'll be miserable. But when you live to give, and you live to care about somebody else, give to a human need, I've learned this, that the person who cares for someone else doesn't care near as much about themselves. Let me say that again, because that was really profound. The person who cares for someone else doesn't care near as much about themselves. You can't. You don't have time. You don't have the energy to worry about yourself when you're investing it in other people. I've watched some of you people here in Awana. I'm done preaching now. I'll just start meddling a little bit. But I've watched sometimes you workers in Awana. You come on a Wednesday night, and you're stressed out. It's been a horrible day at work. It's like, And this usually starts happening more about February, March, and you're praying Awana would end soon. Okay. And you're like, oh, my goodness gracious. And it's just, it's a horrible time at work. And they're on my case, and I don't know if I'm going to have my job. And as preacher, I'm really strained. And then I watch you through the night. And then game time starts, And at first of the game time, you're like, run, kid, go, whack, back of the head. But by the end, you've won a couple games, and yay, way to go, little Johnny, and it's okay. And now you start investing a little more time back into these kids, and then it's handbook time, and you sit and you listen to the kid finally get through the books of the Bible after the 38th attempt, and they get through it, and you say, Revelation, you go, yes, Revelation, he got through, and you sign off that paper, and you get excited for him, and he gives you a big hug, and you're like, whoa, kid's hug, okay, I wasn't ready for that one, but, and that's okay, too, and you invest that time in them, and then at the end of the night, you're doing council time, and there's a good council time lesson, and one of the little boys after class, gives their heart and life to Jesus Christ, and you were there to kind of help out, and you were there to maybe listen to somebody else to lead them to Christ or whatever, and you go home, you're going, preacher, this is the greatest thing in the world. I can't wait till next week. And you know why? Because for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it was, you sank your life into somebody else who didn't have anybody else who cared about them. And it was life-changing. And then you go home, And you go, oh my goodness, let's look at the bills and let's get all stressed out again. You see? But when we live to give, it changes who we are. It changes our lives. It really and truly does. Let's bow our heads this morning.